Guild Wars 2 launched in August 2012 with great excitement. It was a game that broke many common trends in MMO design. It boasted an exciting combat system, a sense of exploration with its dynamic event system, and an art style and map design that are still breathtaking today. Guild Wars 2 at launch had a strong base of features that are now being echoed in newer MMOs. However, the eager flood of players soon diminished. I believe this was primarily due to two reasons: burnout and boredom. Many players going with a conventional mindset of MMOs rush to get to max level as quickly as possible. Guild Wars 2 was not a game designed to be rushed to max level, but one rather meant to be experienced, and leveling up to be a side effect of just simply playing what you found fun. Many of these players, myself included, burnt out and took breaks from the game before ever reaching max level. Those that did make it to max level, having reached their goal, then looked for the next challenge. At launch, dungeons were supposed to supply this challenge, and they did for a while. However, Guild Wars 2's combat system was new and untested, and the Berserker stack and smack meta soon trivialized this content into a grindy gold farm. Part of the marketing for the release of Guild Wars 2 was that it was supposed to be a game where the world evolved over time, and in November of 2012, players got their first taste of what this would look like with the release of Living World Season 1. These story releases provided some fun and memorable encounters, and served to bring back some of those players that had taken a break. During this time, the developers worked on refining the aspects of their game. Fractals were released to provide high-level challenging content, and the new player experience was unveiled to try and slow down new players and help them enjoy the game. Both systems needed some revisions from their original form, but now serve their purpose decently well. While Living World Season 1 did provide quite a few releases, 20 releases in 17 months not counting festivals and feature packs, these releases suffered in consistency in quality of content and pacing. They also only provided temporary content. Once a release was finished, that content was gone forever, and players who did not get to play it only got to see an echo of the story in videos. This system also was not suitable to provide the meaty content and story that players wanted. In July of 2014, Living World Season 2 was unveiled, along with the new Story Journal. This season would contain 2 new maps as well as replayable story content. The quality of the story was also increased, and at the end of the season, players found out that an expansion would be coming out as well. This served to address many of the issues that existed with Living World Season 1, and was generally received well by the players. The developers also continued to refine the base game, making several tweaks to the new systems they had released in Season 1. Season 2 was not without its issues, however. During this season, the developers tried to increase the quality of the releases while still keeping the pace of Season 1. This led to the developers burning out and needing to take breaks, meaning that content only came out in spurts rather than a constant flow. Additionally, the shift to an expansion model meant that many resources had to be taken away from the live side of the game, leading to the first content drought between the end of Season 2 and the release of the first expansion. Heart of Thorns released in October of 2015 after a long period of no content updates. This expansion was feature-rich, laying the groundwork for the expansion plus Living World model. The expansion brought with it a new class and elite specializations, masteries to provide horizontal progression, and raids which further complemented Fractals by providing a hardcore tier to challenging group content. While HOT was feature-rich, it was content-poor. The story was okay, but generally received as underwhelming and rushed. Additionally, because the live team had to work on the expansion, they needed to ramp up before they were able to release any new content, leading to the second content drought. While raids did release during this time, the meta-centric maps in HOT meant that most new content required planning and scheduling to be able to play, and HOT lost that log in whenever, go wherever, and find something new, fun, and exciting to do feeling that the base game had. On July of 2016, the first episode of Season 3 of The Living World released, and with it an announcement. The Living World team would be slowing down releases in order to prevent burnout of the teams. Additionally, the developers were being split into two groups. The live team who would work on Living World, raids, competitive game modes, and quality of life revisions, and the expansion team who would work on the next expansion. This was done so that the expansion plus Living World model could function without the large content droughts that came with HOT. Season 3's releases were a step above Season 2's in both content and quality. Each release came with a new map, 6 in total during the season, and a longer, more coherent story. Also during this time, a new raid wing was released along with refinement and expansion of other core systems. Season 3 was not without issues, however. There was still some variance among the releases, with some story content falling flatter than others, or some maps having better design than others. Additionally, the competitive scene of World v World and PvP hit the bottom of the downward trend that they had been on. Also, game balance tended to be an issue as developers tried to break apart the Berserker meta, as well as correct each elite specialization into the role it was intended for. The thing that I take away from this history is that while Guild Wars 2 is not perfect, no game really ever will be, the development team has shown promise in learning from their mistakes and correcting them. Looking at Path of Fire, it appears that these maps will have more of the wander around and stumble upon events feeling that the core maps had, while still having some of the big metas that HOT maps had. The balance team seems to be getting a handle on the classes, though we shall see what the upcoming pre-POF balance patch brings. The competitive game modes are still in a rough spot. I'm not a competitive player, so cannot speak in depth about them, but it seems that World v World is going to take quite a bit of experimentation on the part of the developers to get into a good place. And that while PvP is in a fairly good place design-wise, the community for it just needs time to come back and naturally develop. All in all, I'm excited to see what new things the developers will try and how they will refine the game further. Importantly, I think Guild Wars 2 has found its rhythm, and this both helps the players in knowing what to expect and the developer in defining their scope of the releases. What do you think? Do you think the Guild Wars 2 development team has learned from their mistakes? What are some strengths that you've seen come into the game? How about some weaknesses that you think will be corrected with POF, or some concerns that you might have for the future of the game?